No one expected fireworks when the congressional hearing was gavelled in that gray Tuesday morning. Room 2141 of the Rayburn House office building was quietly filling with weary lawmakers, their faces marked by routine and resignation. Outside, a light drizzle fell over Washington, matching the somber mood inside. The day felt forgettable until Pam Bondi entered the room. Calm, composed, and laser-focused, the former Florida Attorney General moved with quiet authority. She clutched a slim legal pad, filled with carefully annotated notes, the result of days, if not weeks, of meticulous preparation. Her legal team had scrutinized every document, cross-checked every citation, and lined up their case with surgical precision. Bondi didn't say much. She didn't have to. Her presence commanded the room. Then, in a moment that will likely be replayed for years, Bondi pulled out a single document. The air shifted. Across the room, Kash Patel's confident expression crumbled into stunned disbelief. In less than 30 seconds, everything had changed. The paper Bondi held wasn't just evidence, it was a bombshell. A long-buried piece of the puzzle that revealed years of political deception, suddenly laid bare for all to see. For months, Patel had dominated the airwaves. His dramatic statements and unverified claims had become media staples, repeated without scrutiny across primetime segments. He was seen as a key insider, someone who knew the secrets of Washington and wasn't afraid to speak them aloud. But behind the scenes, Bondi had been quietly investigating. Patiently, relentlessly. With the precision of a seasoned prosecutor, she followed trails others ignored, connecting pieces others failed to see. Now, her work had culminated in one moment, and that moment might change the future of American politics. Don't miss a single update as this story continues to unfold. Like and subscribe for ongoing coverage of what may be the most consequential political reckoning in years. While Kash Patel made headlines with bold TV appearances and confident soundbites, Pam Bondi was crafting something far more powerful, an airtight case built not on noise, but on quiet precision. That morning, Patel looked entirely at ease as he took his seat at the witness table. His suit was sharply tailored, his tie a touch too loud for the somber congressional setting. He chuckled with his attorney, casually exchanging remarks off mic, clearly comfortable under the lights. His nameplate gleamed under the LED glow, a symbol of his insider status. Around the room, cameras from C-SPAN and national news outlets panned into focus. Microphones lit up red. The chairs squeaked faintly. Then came the quiet before the storm, the stillness just before the hearing began. Committee Chairman DuPont called the meeting to order and laid out the day's agenda. On paper, it was routine. Patel had been summoned to clarify discrepancies from his previous testimony surrounding a controversial intelligence review that had sparked national debate. It wasn't supposed to be dramatic, just a formality. Or so everyone believed. But the gravity of the moment was unmistakable. This wasn't merely about Patel's memory. It was about the credibility of the nation's intelligence process. About accountability. About whether truth still had a place in Washington. The hearing began predictably. Dates. Timelines. Bureaucratic language. Patel responded with clipped, confident replies, each one carefully worded, each syllable sounding like it had been rehearsed 100 times. Roughly 30 minutes in, it was Pam Bondi's turn. The chairman gave her a brief nod. She leaned in and adjusted her microphone. "Mr. Patel," she began, her voice steady and unassuming. "In your last appearance before this committee, you testified under oath that you had no written communication with Mr. Devlin regarding the March 14th briefing. Is that correct?" Patel glanced to his side before nodding. "That's correct. I believe that's what I said." Bondi didn't lift her eyes from the desk. Calmly, she opened a folder, flipped a tab, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. No dramatic gestures. No highlighter marks. Just a stark document, printed in black ink. "For the record," she said, "I'm submitting a memo dated March 13th from your personal email to Mr. Devlin's private account. It references, in exact language, the March 14th briefing." The room froze. A faint shuffle came from somewhere behind the witness row. Patel's face didn't change at first. "That's not possible," he said after a beat. "That email must be misattributed." Bondi didn't respond to the deflection. Instead, she began reading, line by line. The memo wasn't vague, it was detailed, time-stamped, and carbon copied to 2 additional staffers. And there at the bottom, Kash Patel's digital signature. Chairman DuPont broke the silence, requesting clarification. Patel leaned into the mic again, clearly rattled. He tried to reframe the exchange, but the smooth rhythm he had maintained all morning was gone. Bondi hadn't raised her voice. She didn't need to. Every word landed like a carefully placed strike. "I'll move on to my next question," she said calmly. "But this memo is only the beginning. It's one of several inconsistencies we've documented." Patel raised a hand to respond, this time, his voice firmer, but his composure cracking. The silence that followed was deafening. Something had shifted. You could hear it in his voice. "With all due respect, Representative," Kash Patel said, the word respect sharp, defensive, almost resentful. "That email doesn't reflect what actually happened. There's context you're missing." Pam Bondi didn't flinch. Calm, composed, and razor-focused, she turned a page in her folder with measured ease. "Then perhaps," she replied, "you can provide that context now." Patel leaned into the mic, trying to steady himself. "If someone on my team sent that draft, and it was misattributed, you signed it?" Bondi interjected, voice still steady. "The signature line matches 3 others archived from the same email address. Same font. Same metadata. Would you like me to read those into the record as well?" A low murmur rippled through the gallery. For the first time that morning, Patel's composure cracked. His jaw tightened. He shifted in his seat. "I don't recall signing that," he said quickly. "Good thing," Bondi responded. "We don't rely on memory alone." Beneath the table, Patel's attorney placed a hand on his arm, a silent warning. "Stop talking." Then Bondi's aide handed her a new document, this one in full color. She held it up just enough for the camera lenses to catch a glimpse. "This is a screenshot," she said, "of your encrypted text exchange with Mr. Devlin. Dated the day after the memo. You wrote, quote, 'That memo's locked, clean, and off the radar.' Just like we said. Would you like to explain what that means?" Patel let out a short, nervous laugh. "We're seriously bringing screenshots now?" Bondi's expression didn't change. "Do you dispute the content?" "No," Patel replied. "I'm saying you're trying to turn this into a political spectacle over informal exchanges." "They were about a federal intelligence briefing," she said plainly. "Not a lunch order." The atmosphere in the room shifted. Committee members who had spent the morning half-scrolling through phones now looked up. Every camera lens was locked in. The silence thickened. Chairman Dupont adjusted his glasses, eyes flicking toward Patel's attorney. "Mr. Patel," the chairman said, "you may answer the question or invoke your Fifth Amendment right. But let me remind you, this committee takes perjury very seriously." The word perjury hung in the air like smoke after a fuse has been lit. "There's no perjury," Patel snapped. His voice rose. "This is a smear campaign, and I'm not going to sit here while you're not sitting here." Bondi interrupted, tone flat, unshaken. "You're here because the facts don't add up, and the American people deserve clarity." Each word landed with precise impact. No yelling, just conviction. Patel looked toward the chairman, then down at the table. Something broke. "I've had enough of this," he said, louder now, pushing his chair back. "You've clearly made up your minds. I won't be part of this kangaroo court." He stood, not in a storm, but with cold finality. His attorney jumped up, fumbling for documents. The chairman slammed the gavel 3 times. "Mr. Patel," he warned, "you are under oath. You may not leave unless formally dismissed by this committee." But Patel didn't stop. He pushed past a stunned staffer at the door and walked out of room 2141 like a man done with the script. In the hallway, reporters scrambled. Cameras flashed. Microphones caught fragments of his attorney's voice. "This is the worst possible move. Contempt charges." Inside, silence returned, but it wasn't peaceful. It was uncertain, confused, tense. He wasn't allowed to walk out. Yet he had. For several seconds, no one moved. Then came the flurry. Staffers whispered. Reporters reached for their phones. A CNN producer dashed outside. A local anchor had already kicked off her heels and was live on air from the corridor. Back in the hearing room, Bondi remained steady. One of her aides quietly slid a fresh folder across the table. She opened it, and for the first time, something changed in her expression. Not fear, not triumph, but quiet resolve. "The hearing will pause briefly," Bondi announced. Her voice cut through the buzz. "Not to dramatize this, but because there is one more document we must enter into the record." She nodded to her aide. A screen behind them lit up. White text over a black background. A private message chain. The contact name at the top, W staff line. And just like that, the hearing was about to take a darker, far more consequential turn. The message was short, brutal. "Make sure we don't mention it in email. If she asks, deny it. She won't follow up." As the words appeared on screen, the room fell deathly silent. Even the photographers froze, shutters stilled mid-frame. A senior committee member leaned forward, squinting through his glasses, stunned at what he was reading. Pam Bondi remained poised at the witness table. This message, she said evenly, was sent approximately 2 hours after Mr. Patel's sworn testimony last December, where he assured this committee under oath that all communications regarding the security protocol were properly documented through official channels. Out in the hallway, Kash Patel's attorney paced back and forth, flanked by 2 assistants, one on a call, the other hammering away at a laptop. He needs to come back, the lawyer muttered. Walking out like that on live TV was bad enough. But if she's got more, he needs to get ahead of it. Where is he now? One assistant asked. Waiting in a car, 2 blocks away. Says he needs a minute. He doesn't have a minute, the other snapped, staring at her screen. It's already trending. Inside, Chairman DuPont spoke quietly with legal counsel. After a short exchange, he addressed the room. This committee will recess for 15 minutes to allow Mr. Patel to return. His counsel has been informed that failure to appear could result in contempt proceedings. Speculation exploded. Within minutes, #Patel walkout was trending across platforms. Legal analysts were rushed onto cable news panels. Phones buzzed nonstop throughout the Capitol complex. Exactly 14 minutes later, Patel returned. No dramatics, no speeches, no smirks. He entered quietly through a side door, coat off, face drained. There was no fire in his eyes now, only the look of a man told, in private, that control of the narrative was no longer his. Chairman DuPont tapped his gavel. We resume today's hearing. Representative Bondi, you may proceed. She adjusted her microphone slowly, deliberately. What you are about to hear, she began, was taken from an internal Zoom training session hosted by Mr. Patel while serving as a senior advisor. In this session, he gave instructions regarding communication practices and protocol. Mr. Patel, do you recall such a session? Patel hesitated, then looked to his lawyer. The attorney gave the slightest nod. If you say it's from a session, Patel replied flatly, I won't deny it. Good, Bondi said. We've clipped a 45-second excerpt. Please listen. The lights dimmed slightly as the recording played. Patel's voice filled the room, not the subdued man now seated at the table, but a version of himself that was confident, cavalier, and entirely unfiltered. Keep comms clean. If you've got anything that even looks like it crosses a line, send it through Signal. Never email. And if anyone asks later, deny knowledge, unless you're backed into a corner. A hush followed. Not a dramatic gasp, just the quiet tension of people realizing they were no longer watching pageantry, but exposure. Committee members exchanged looks. One staffer in the back covered her mouth. Bondi waited. Then she gestured to her aide again. Another clip played. We're not writing this stuff down. That's how you get pulled into hearings. You want cover? Use private channels. You want risk? Go formal. Your call. The audio was crystal clear. There was no plausible deniability. In a nearby overflow room, an intern watching on a monitor whispered, Holy, she's got him cold. At the table, Patel stared down. His shoulders were slumped. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently. Patel didn't react. Chairman DuPont's voice cut through. Mr. Patel, is that your voice? A long pause. Then a visible swallow. Yes, Patel said, barely audible. Do you retract any of those statements? Patel's lawyer touched his arm again. Patel shrugged him off. No, that single word sent a shockwave through the room. Phones lit up as aides began messaging their chiefs of staff and press contacts. Bondi leaned slightly forward, her voice calm but loaded with moral gravity. Let the record show. These weren't offhand remarks. These were directives. From someone with clearance. From someone who knew exactly how to evade transparency designed to protect democratic institutions. She paused. Would you care to explain why you gave those instructions? Patel slowly looked up. His voice was flat. I was following a playbook. One we all knew. One that worked. A ripple ran through the room. Bondi's pen tightened in her hand. And who is we, Mr. Patel? He hesitated. His lawyer whispered again. This time Patel didn't resist, but his tone remained defeated. The policy team, he said quietly. At least 5 of us. And were you instructed to keep those communications off the record? Yes, he murmured. By whom? He shook his head slightly. I'd rather not say. Not here. Bondi didn't press. Not yet. But the room had shifted. What began as a spectacle had become something else entirely. Consequence. Outside, news anchors were openly stunned on live feeds. Sharon's shifted in real time. Patel admits to playbook for hiding communications, possible obstruction case now under DOJ review. Chairman DuPont's voice returned, firm and solemn. This hearing will enter an extended review. All testimony will be referred to the Oversight Committee, and legal counsel will coordinate with the Department of Justice regarding potential charges of perjury and obstruction. The shift was official. From scandal to investigation. Within hours, the clips had gone viral. Satellite trucks lined the streets. Cable panels cleared schedules for emergency analysis. Inside the Capitol, Bondi leaned toward her aide. "Brenda, we weren't even looking for that clip," she whispered. Brenda blinked. "Someone sent it?" "No," Bondi replied. "Someone wanted it found. That's what changed everything. Because whoever leaked the recording knew what it would unleash, and sent it anyway." 2 weeks earlier, in a small, windowless archive room just 4 blocks from the Capitol, 28-year-old Melinda Kash was cross-referencing old hearing transcripts. Sharp-eyed, unassuming, always listening. She overheard 2 senior staffers joking about a ghost drive, a USB stick that didn't exist. One of them mentioned something called W-staff line. Melinda didn't laugh. She took notes. Later, digging through metadata and flagging anomalies, she found 4 references to that code name. Each one subtle, each one traceable. All of them connected to one inbox, Kash Patel at, and that was when the storm truly began. It started with a single thread. Melinda Kash pulled on it, and the whole sleeve came undone. She didn't alert her supervisor. She didn't tell her roommate. She didn't broadcast her discovery or post cryptic messages online. Instead, Melinda quietly gathered the evidence, verified every piece, printed it out, and sealed it in an unmarked envelope. It sat on her kitchen table for 4 days. Then, on her day off, she walked into Representative Bondi's district office. She handed the envelope to a staffer at the front desk and said just one sentence, "Give this to her, no one else." While headlines exploded with words like perjury and cover-up, and as media outlets dissected every second of the now infamous hearing, another story was playing out in the shadows. It wasn't loud. It wasn't televised. But it was just as important. In a quiet apartment in D.C., Melinda returned to her routine. Sorting files. Logging data. Walking past the same people who had no idea what she'd done. She didn't want fame. She didn't care about trending hashtags or camera lights. She just wanted people in power to do their jobs and be held accountable when they didn't. That, to her, was enough. As for Patel, he vanished from public view. No statements, no interviews, no tweets. His attorney released a brief, vague note about misunderstandings and context, but by then, no one was listening. Whispers of criminal charges surfaced. Maybe they would come. Maybe they wouldn't. But the real damage wasn't to Patel's career. The damage was to the illusion. The illusion that powerful people can lie long enough, loud enough, and confidently enough to outrun the truth. That no one is really watching. That paper trails can be buried. That people are too distracted or too disillusioned to care. This time, the truth didn't knock down doors or light up breaking news banners. It simply waited, quiet, time-stamped, undeniable. In the White House, aides scrambled to put distance between themselves and Patel. He was an inner circle, one senior official told reporters off the record. He exaggerated his role. On Capitol Hill, both parties tried spinning the revelations. Republicans focused on procedural concerns, how the information was obtained. Democrats zeroed in on what was exposed. But behind closed doors, lawmakers on both sides were deleting old messages, reviewing encrypted apps, and checking their own footprints. If they got Patel, one congressman muttered to a staffer, they can get anyone. At the Justice Department, a specialized review team quietly convened to determine whether Patel's actions crossed the line from unethical to criminal. Legal commentators on TV debated the fine distinctions between reckless behavior and willful misconduct, between dishonor and indictment. But in homes across the country, those debates didn't matter. To everyday Americans watching the headlines roll in, the story was brutally simple. Someone in power got caught. And for once, they didn't get away with it. The viral moment came not from fireworks, but from Patel's own recorded words, "Deny knowledge unless you're backed into a corner." It became a meme, a punchline, a protest chant. This is why we don't trust them. 3 days later, Pam Bondi stood before reporters. No gloating, no spin. When asked how she stayed so calm through it all, she offered only this: the truth doesn't need theatrics. It just needs to be heard. For every Patel, there's someone like Bondi, meticulous, determined, unshaken. And behind her, someone like Melinda, anonymous, quiet, unrecognized. And beyond both of them, scrolling through phones late at night or asking questions in classrooms or living rooms, are the people who still care enough to listen. That's where the real accountability begins. Not in shouting people down, but in daring to ask the question they thought you never would. 1 month later, 3 more officials resigned as the investigation widened. And it all began with one envelope. One question. One person paying attention. Text messages unearthed during the investigation revealed more than careless words. They exposed a system. A deliberate, coordinated network of efforts designed to keep sensitive communications out of official channels. But it didn't stop there. The so-called playbook that Kash Patel casually referenced during his testimony, it turned out to be real. A 12-page document titled Communication Security Protocols, a step-by-step guide on how to sidestep oversight, avoid paper trails, and operate in the shadows of bureaucracy. The irony was undeniable. The very system crafted to hide the truth became the smoking gun that revealed it. In her office, Pam Bondi tacked a quote to her bulletin board. It was from Justice Louis Brandeis. Sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants. Next to it, a small sticky note with one number, 17. 17. The number of additional officials now under investigation because of a chain reaction that began with one email, one encrypted text, one audio clip, and one person who decided not to look away. If this story made you pause, even for a moment, to think about how power works in our democracy and who's really paying attention, then stay with us. Subscribe. Follow. Because we're not done watching. And we're definitely not done asking the questions that those in power hope no one dares to ask. They may believe they're untouchable. But as Kash Patel learned the moment Pam Bondi placed those documents on the table, no one stays above the truth forever.